Good evening. Good evening. I'm Patrick Cassidy, and I'm the artistic director of Studio Tenn. Welcome to Studio Tenn Talks. We are so thrilled to be here tonight. I just want to remind everybody, we always say this at the beginning of the show. We say it at the end, which is that we survive on ticket sales and on donations. And right now the ticket sales are low. So please donate. The reason that we're here with Studio Tenn Talks is because all of you have been so generous. And it's there at the bottom of your screen. You can support us by going to Studio Tenn, clicking on the donate button above and messaging Studio Tenn Talks. So we have a couple things to just talk about before we get to our incredible guest. We have a bourbon sweepstakes going on live right now. We have there it is, the Fall Barrel Bash. Tickets available now at fallbarrelbash.com for Studio Tenn. These are very rare bourbons. Right here we have Stag Jr. Now, from what I've been told, Stag Jr. is a very rare bourbon. And so I'm thinking, 15 grand? No. But go and purchase this. It's a very rare one to get. But this one over here, Van Winkle, for those of you who don't know, this bottle goes for $1,200, and that is no joke. And apparently it's because 12 years ago, that's how old this was, there was a strike and many people were laid off and the bourbon was not made. So therefore, I don't know, that's what my producer told me, and I just conveyed it really badly. But anyway, go to our website, go bid on these. They're great. Have them. There it is, Fall Barrel Bash. Tickets available now on fallbarrelbash.com. Without further ado, I want to get to our first guest. He is an incredible guy. I'm so looking forward to this. I've been telling him he's a graduate of Columbia University, highly acclaimed theater critic, and has been the theater columnist for the New York Post since 1988. He began his radio career as a regular on the Imus in the morning show in 2011, and currently he's the co-host of a show with Len Berman. It's the highest rated morning show in the New York City area. His first book, Razzle Dazzle, The Battle for Broadway, won the 2015 Marfield Prize for Arts Writing, and his next book, Singular Sensation, The Triumph of Broadway, will be published and released tomorrow, November 10th. Get it. But before then, listen to this man. Please welcome Mr. Michael Riedel.
Hey, Patrick. Good to see you. Good to
see you, Michael. Welcome. So good to have you here.
Well, I've got my COVID beard here. I've got my COVID hair. I mean, you're an actor. I'm a writer, so I look schlubby. But you, even for these Zoom chats, you put it together.
Yeah, even this little hairspray. But writers look much more interesting, I must tell you, than actors.
We sort of we write all night. We sleep during the day. We get up for these Zoom chats, and our hair it's bed hair.
Well, it's great to see you. You are in the West Village, yes?
I am, yeah. I'm in the West Village right here in New York City. And I got to tell you, Patrick, I'm concerned about the future of the city. You and I kind of grew up here in New York City. You were on a lot of Broadway shows that I saw. And Broadway was so vibrant in the 80s and into the 90s and into the 2000s. And now it's just dead. I mean, I rode my bike up through Times Square the other day, and I look at all those great theaters, the Majestic, the Broadhurst, the Schubert, the Ambassador, and they're empty. And they have not been empty this long in the entire history of Broadway. I mean,
I can't imagine, Michael, what that feels like. And I've talking to you and talking to several of my other friends that live in Manhattan, and how does that feel? Just hearing about that, it like leaves a lump in my throat.
Well, it's funny. I remember interviewing Chris Harper, who was producing Company, the revival of Stephen Sondheim's great musical with Patti LuPone. And Chris told me, he said, we were receiving guests, and as you do with Patti LuPone, you receive guests in her dressing room.
Yes, I was received before I got to actually work with her. Yes, I was received.
You were received in Patti's dressing room. And Chris and Patti were there, and Cynthia Nixon came in. Now, Cynthia Nixon, a great actress, but also very well politically connected, because she ran for governor of New York State against Andrew Cuomo here.
Oh, I didn't know that. Oh, wow.
Yeah. So Cynthia knows what's going on politically.
Mm-hmm.
And she told Patti and Chris, she said, I came tonight because I wanted I wanted to have some fun before we're going to be locked down. And they were like, well, what is this phrase, lockdown? What does that mean? And the next day, Chris went to a meeting of the Broadway producers, and they were told that Governor Andrew Cuomo had said he prohibited gatherings of 50 or more people. And everybody left that meeting thinking, okay, we're going to be locked down, whatever the lockdown means, for 2 weeks, maybe 4 weeks.
Mhm.
That's it. But we'll be back. And 8 months later, 9 months later, they're not back.
They're still not back.
With no one in sight.
I've heard that story. Well, Patty told me the exact same story on this show about when she got the announcement, and they were in there. I think they were in tech or previews with the show.
Yep, they were in previews. Yep.
I have a friend in Book of Mormon said the same thing. They got the same kind of speech, and it was good. They thought a couple of weeks, we'll be back. It's all, yeah.
Yep.
It's
that night. A bunch of people went to Sardi's, all the Broadway producers, the real big cheeses, the Schuberts, the Niederlanders, Scott Rudin, a whole bunch of big time Broadway producers. They all gathered at the second floor bar of Sardi's. And in fact, one of them called me and said, "Hey, Michael, come up, hang out with us and find out what's going on." But, because I get up so early in the morning to do the radio show, I said, "Guys, I got to go to bed." One of them had a cough, and all of them came down with a coronavirus.
Oh my gosh!
And thank God they all survived. Everyone's fine, but some of them were touch and go there for a while.
Yeah, they're not exactly the youngest group, right?
Yeah. Well, I would never say anything bad about my friends, the Niederlanders and the Schuberts, but these are not spring chickens.
No, they're not. No, I know.
Setting up the theater business, as you know, Patrick.
I want to talk about, and thank you first of all to talk about that. I want to talk about more, but I want to talk about you and where did you start? First of all, where did you grow up?
I grew up in a small town called Geneseo, New York, in upstate, just outside of Rochester, and I was a kid who, I have to say, to be honest with you, Patrick, I was never a theater kid. It was not a big part of my life.
Thing for you then?
No, it was like, I don't know. I was in a play. I remember I was in the Diary of Anne Frank, which was the all Christian version of the Diary of Anne Frank. There was a Jewish family in my small town, the Levins, and everybody said, "Well, the Levins, the Jewish family." And I remember auditioning for the Diary of Anne Frank, and the Levins auditioned, and they weren't cast. So the director of the show cast a bunch of Episcopalians, Presbyterians, and Catholics in the Diary of Anne Frank. But I guess something about that play, and it's a wonderful, wonderful play. Albert Goodrich and his wife, Joan Hackett, I think her name was, they adapted Anne Frank's, iconic diary.
Mm-hmm.
And as a little kid, I was in 7th or 8th grade, and you thought, wow, there's something happening in this play that I don't know about. Something terrible, something frightening, but also something joyous about these people who are still surviving and clinging together.
Mm-hmm.
We know what happens in the end. And I remember just being in that play. I played the dentist. Jan Dussel, his name was, the dentist. I played him. Mm. And I remember doing that play and thinking, I was in 8th grade, and I thought, I have to learn about this moment in time. And I started reading as an 8th grader, a 9th grader, everything about World War II, the Holocaust, the rise of the Nazis. And I just read everything. And so for me, the theater was not so much about wanting to be a performer as an actor, but it was about making your mind expand and think, oh, I never knew that this had happened. And I have to learn about this. I have to learn about, why are these people having to hide in an attic? And I had to learn about that. And that drove my love of history. And that led me to Columbia University, where I was a history major. And I was going to be a lawyer, because that's what you did in the 80s. If you were a history major at a place like Columbia, you were going to be a lawyer.
And then you go into politics.
Yeah, then you go into politics, and then Donald Trump blows everying up, and you think, what have I spent my whole life doing? But for this insanity that has happened to us. But we're back now, we're back on track. So
yes, that's okay.
But it was funny. It was really at Columbia where I was studying history, and I come from a very modest background, and I wanted to stay in New York City one summer. And my dad said to me, "Okay, well, you got to get a job, because we can't afford the dorm room expenses for that summer you're going to stay there." Mm-hmm. So I thought, okay, I got to get a job somewhere. So I went to the, used to be, now it would be online, but back in those days, Patrick, it was a big board with, jobs for summer interns from Columbia. Mm-hmm. And I looked and I said, Elizabeth I. McCann Broadway producer,
Liz McCann, sure,
looking for a summer intern.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, oh, well, that could be interesting. So I went down to her office, and I love Liz. She's still with us. God love her.
Mm.
But she was the scariest woman I have ever met.
Michael, I had to audition for her. You don't have to tell me. I was frightened, shaking as I was singing, "My baby does the hanky pank." Oh, it was awful.
So she's sitting at her desk, and I kid you not, she had this blouse on, Patrick, and there was a ketchup stain dripping down this breast and a mustard stain dripping down this breast. And I thought, he looked like a homeless person. And I said, oh, she said, all right, kid, what do you want? I said, well, Miss McCann, I'm here to apply for the job in your office this summer as an intern. And she said, why does anybody want to get in the goddamn theater? Okay. I swear to God, true story.
I believe you.
And she said, but all right, okay. You look smart. You're in. She said, you're in. So then my first day on the job, absolutely true story, Patrick. My first day on the job, to go in. And Liz had no idea that she'd hired me. And by the way, she was still wearing the same blouse that had the mustard stain here and the ketchup stain here when I went to work. And she's like, why are you here? I said, well, I'm shaking. Well,
yeah.
You'll hire me. She said, all right, well, I got this actor. He's English. He's a pain in the neck. He's a pain in the ass. His air conditioning unit doesn't work. Go over and fix it. I was like, well, my first day on the job, I have to fix some English actor.
I was going to say, did you know that was part of the skill set when you signed up?
No, I had no idea. And he was in the Whippy Hotel. Remember the Whippy on 45th? I think 45th or 44th.
I think I actually stayed there a night or two.
So was this English actor. So Liz McCann sends me out to fix this English actor's air conditioning unit. So like I walk and I think, well, what do I know? I'm studying history at Columbia. What do I know about how to fix an air conditioning unit? There was a Black & Decker store. Remember the old hardware store, Black & Decker?
Sure. On
42nd, I think, and 9th Avenue. And so I thought, well, I'll buy a screwdriver so I'll look like I know what I'm doing. So I go up to the Whippy. I ring the doorbell of this guy, and this elongated man, the tallest man I've ever seen in my life, with just such a thin face. He says, yes. I said, I'm here to fix your air conditioning unit. He says, oh, it's beastly hot in here. It's beastly hot, beastly hot, beastly hot. Come in. So I walk through, and then I see this, I must say, a very comely calf of a young woman sticking out from under the sheets of his bed. And then this very attractive blonde.
Did you actually just say comely calf?
Comely calf. And then this woman, she goes, oh, it's beastly hot in here. It's so hot. It's so hot in here. Oh, what is going on with these crazy theater people? And I swear to God, Patrick, I went over to that air conditioning unit. He's going, beastly hot. Beastly hot. It's so hot in here. So hot in here. And I put the screwdriver in, and I jiggle around, and the air conditioning unit started to work. It went on. And the shutters. And I was like, oh, thank you. And I left. And that elongated man was one Alan Rickman.
Oh my God!
On Broadway in Les Liaisons Dangereuses.
Dangerous, yeah.
And the girl in the bed was Beatty Edney, who then became a very fine actress.
Oh my gosh!
And I thought, you know what? If that's how you can handle theater people, with a screwdriver and an air conditioning unit, this is the business I want to be in.
Well, I must tell you, I have to make two comments. And I knew, guys, do we have 4 hours? Because I'm going to be here with Michael a while. There's two things I want to comment on. First of all, one thing about the Diary of Anne Frank, that was hysterical. You said, you remember Pia Zadora?
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
Well, you know the famous.
That's what I was going to say. And so I thought I'd just tell it for a few of our viewers. Pia Zadora apparently was doing the lead title character in the Diary of Anne Frank. And there's that famous scene at the end when the Nazis storm in, and after, at that scene, the whole audience stood up and said, she's upstairs.
No. The line is, when the Nazis storm in, somebody called out, because Pia Zadora was playing Anne Frank, and somebody called out, "She's in the attic."
Oh, that's it. That's it.
That's the joke there.
See, I need you to give me a punchline because I blow it every time. And the other thing I was going to tell you is that Liz McCann. So, and we're going to talk about this in a minute. So we'll go leader of the pack. And I auditioned on. They flew me out from California. I came in to audition. It was my final audition, and Nell Nugent, love her, and Liz is there. And just like you said about the mustard and the ketchup, there's Liz McCann, and I'm singing at the top of my lungs, and I look over, and she's like this. And I was like, oh my gosh.
You know, I've since over the years become very good friends with Liz, and I check up on her every week just to see how she's doing, because she's a little elderly now. But when my first book came out, Razzle Dazzle, The Battle for Broadway, she came to the book party, and I said, I want to thank my good friend Liz McCann because she gave me my start in the theater. And she yelled out, she said, "Oh, for God's sake, stop saying that. People will hate me."
Well, okay. I want to show a little clip that's going to lead into a little discussion. I want to talk to you about your job. So this is a little clip from a little show you did called Theater Talk. Take a look.
From New York City, this is Theater Talk. I'm Susan Haskins.
And I'm Michael Riedel of the New York Post. Susan, we've come to the end of yet another Broadway season, so it is time to assess what's been good and bad and somewhat indifferent with our good friends, the vicious, mean, nasty drama critics. We are joined by our good friends Peter Marks of the Washington Post, Ben Brantley of the New York Times, Terry Teachout of the Wall Street Journal, and the dean of the drama critics, John Simon from the Westchester Guardian, whose blog is
Uncensored John Simon.
So, okay. So, what brings me to my very first question. What's it like being a theater critic?
Well, I mean, no one sets out to be a theater critic. You have to fail at many things before you become a theater critic. All of those people at my round table. You can't act. You can't really write a play. You can't direct a play.
Yeah, but you've already proven to me with all the accents and all the dialect stuff, you can act. You can be funny, and you could deliver a punchline very well. So
yes, but at the point, at those days I couldn't. But I'll tell you about theater critics, and I got to know many of them. And sadly, John Simon, who was a great friend of mine, he was feared, as you know, Patrick, by everybody back then. But he was a good friend of mine. The one thing that theater critics have, if they're any good, they have taste. Okay. Mm-hmm. And you can put on a show and you can have your heart and soul in it. You can believe in it. You can put a lot of money behind it. But somebody at some point has to come along and say, it is good or it's not. And critics, I always think, are people with taste. Their taste may not be your taste. It's their taste, their personal expression of how they react to it. But if they're any good, and if they're good writers, like Frank Rich, like John Simon, like Clive Barnes back in his day, the reader will think, you know what? I trust this guy. I trust his taste. I trust his ability to suss out something and say, this is good, this is bad, or indifferent. And without critics, you don't sell any tickets. You can't just put on your play and expect people to come. Somebody at some point has to go and say, you know what? This is worthy. This is interesting. This is engaging. This is compelling. Go to see it. By the same token, you're also selling tickets. And if somebody comes along, a good critic like John Simon or Clive Barnes or Brooks Atkinson, and they say, you know, it's not worth your time. It's not worth your money. That's a service that has to be rendered to the people that you want to sell tickets to. I mean, you're running the theater now. I mean, you must know, sometimes you put on shows and you think, this is absolutely great. But sometimes you put on shows and you think, oh, well, yeah.
And you always start out, I mean, everybody sets out to do something great.
Nobody sets out to do a flop. Nobody. But sometimes it isn't that good. And, you know, at the end of the day, you're selling You're selling your wares. And if your wares aren't good enough, there's somebody there who's going to say, you missed this time. Now, if you're a good critic, you come and you do it viciously like John Simon, you stick the ice pick in the neck, and that's fun to read. Because remember, Patrick, a great vicious review is the most fun thing in the world.
unless you're on the end of the viciousness. If you're on,
seldom am I on that.
Yes, yeah.
For me, it's like I wipe the blood away from the.
And tell me, I've always wanted to know this. I would have loved to have asked this of Frank Rich or Ben Brantley, or or yourself, when you walk into a theater, opening night of, let's say Spider-Man Turn Off the Dark. You walk into the theater. Yes, exactly. And they know, oh my God, there's Michael Riedel, and I've got to sit next to him. Are you aware of the fact that like all eyes are on you? Are you aware of that? Are you aware of the feeling that's within the theater from seat to seat, and everybody's looking to see what you're enjoying, or if you're enjoying, or any of that?
Yeah, I am, and I love it, frankly. I mean, it's our moment to shine in the spotlight. But back in the day when we critics, we would walk down the aisle, everyone looked, oh, there's John Simon, there's Frank Rich, there's Michael Riedel. And in Spider-Man Turn Off the Dark, I bought a ticket. I bought a ticket to see a preview because I'd heard from my friends in the show. Had you written
anything up to that?
Yes, I'd written a whole bunch of
parts. You had? Okay.
The money fell out. The feuding, the fighting, Julie was crazy, Bono and the Edge were nuts. I'd written all about it. Mm-hmm. I thought, I got to buy a ticket to see this show. So I couldn't get a press seat because they don't give you those things for free. But if you buy a ticket, you're entitled to walk into the theater. So I bought a ticket. I bought a ticket in a very good seat. I sat down in that seat, row F on the aisle. It was at the Ford Center, where you did
42nd Street. That's right.
And the producers came out on stage and they said, we're going to have a delay here because there's a rat in the house. Well, that's crazy. And then the usher came down and he said, Mr. Riedel, you're in the wrong seat. And I said, what do you mean I'm in the wrong seat? This is my ticket. He said, no, you're in the wrong seat. I said, what? He said, yeah, you're in the wrong seat. I said, no, this is the seat that I paid for. He said, well, no, the show can't start until you're in the right seat, and you're in the wrong seat. And then everyone was like I thought, okay, this is an interesting moment. What's going to happen here? I can stand my ground and stay in the seat. And then it was getting murmuring in the audience. The show wasn't starting. I thought, I'm not going to make a scene. So, all right, take me to my right seat. And the usher took me upstairs to the last row of the balcony, because the producers knew that I was in row F, but they kicked me upstairs to the balcony.
Oh my! And did this have anything to do with the comment about there's a rat in the house or whatever it was?
Well, I was the rat in the house.
Oh.
So then I thought, okay, this is fine. I'll play along. So the next day I wrote a column. I said, you know what? Spider-Man Turn Off the Dark is just as bad from row F as it is from row 22GXYZ up in the balcony. And I thought, license to kill, baby. And then I killed that show.
And I didn't mind the nosebleed. Wow.
I said, I hoped it would have improved by being as far away from the show as I could possibly be, but yet it's still terrible.
Did you see? I wanted to. So I've been so blessed and fortunate. I've done, over the course of my career, I've done 6 Broadway shows, but only twice did I get to originate. And the first one was Leader of the Pack. Did you see Leader of the Pack?
I did not, but I know that Liz McCann almost lost her livelihood because she was sued by all the producers on that.
Oh yeah, and it was, and I'm pretty sure about this. I know you know more than I do, but I'm pretty sure it was considered. If you don't count Amos Behavin', but I believe it was the first jukebox musical.
It was, yeah. Liz always says to me, I did Leader of the Pack. It was a jukebox musical. I was ahead of my time, and I still went bankrupt.
Well, it was. I remember the time, and we got creamed by the critics, and this isn't a musical, and how dare you, and blah blah blah. And then, of course, 3 months later or less, Buddy opens, big hit, same thing. Yeah, and we've progressed and evolved to Jersey Boys and things like that. But But that was the thing. And then the second one, and I want to talk to you more about this. Did you get to see Assassins at Playwrights?
Yeah, no, I saw the original production of Assassins. Jerry Zaks directed it, right?
Right.
Victor Garber was in it.
Right.
You were in it, right? Were you?
Yeah, that's why I'm asking. Yeah, and I did. That was the other one I originated it.
I have to be honest with you, Patrick, because you and I are old friends. I think we had an epic night of drinking in the Bucks County
I tell you, I want you. You're going to deliver my eulogy when I pass. You're delivering it from that night.
Here's the thing I felt about Assassins, and I felt about it again when, remember, Joe Mantello did a revival of it.
Yeah, that one actually made it to Broadway.
Right.
That's right.
Here is my problem with Assassins, and I've thought about this because I'm a great admirer of Stephen Sondheim, though I'm not an acolyte. A lot of people, Steve Sondheim, the greatest, the best. For my money, I think the great composer of all time is Richard Rodgers. I mean, those melodies, just to me, they touch my heart. And they make me smile every time I hear them.
You've just become an adopted son of my mother.
Yeah. And I love Oscar Hammerstein's lyrics. I mean, he can be a little bit cynical, but he always can be sentimental without being cloying, and that's a fine line to walk. The problem I always thought with Assassins was it's a show that's fighting against itself. On the one hand, it wants to say, okay, these assassins, they're victims of this capitalistic society. They're victims of this awful, evil America that we've created. And yet, when it comes right down to it, all those assassins were complete and utter nutcakes and lunatics. Mm-hmm. They were not victims of capitalism. They were not victims of the American society. They were fucked up people.
Crazy.
Squeaky Fromme is not a victim of capitalism.
No.
Lee Harvey Oswald is not a victim of capitalism. Kozik, the guy who killed McKinley, I think.
Yeah, Cholgosh.
Yeah, right, exactly. But when you see them and the way they're rendered on stage, it fights against itself. The show wants to say these assassins really are victims of this evil machinery of capitalism. And then you see them, and they're nut jobs. They're fruitcakes. Mm-hmm. They're lunatics. Mm-hmm. So the whole thing doesn't quite come together.
Do you see? I mean, one of the things at the time in 1991 is that many of the critics and quotes were about that they thought that both Steve and John were glorifying these people, and it was the opposite. They were actually saying, trying to say, take a look at our society, capitalism, take a look at the media, and take a look at what we as a society promote. And now more than ever, which is this idea that I have to do something heinous to be heard. I have to do something shocking to be, to be looked at as if, I matter. And that today, I mean, we live in a society that's about.
I know, but at the end of the day, how can you say, I want to be heard, so I'm going to kill someone? Is killing someone the justification for wanting to be heard? I can't go that way.
Maybe it is for, as you said, though, for a nutcase, for somebody. Yeah, I know if I, I know I'll be acknowledged. I wasn't acknowledged by mommy or daddy. I wasn't acknowledged, but I will be acknowledged by the world. I will go down in history. Nobody would know who Lee Harvey Oswald was unless he did what he did. I agree. I mean, but it is part of what, I think in many ways America has become. It's about, look at politics.
Yeah, I mean, I have a little more faith in America than maybe many of my friends do. We've gotten rid of Donald Trump, and we've got sleepy old Joe Biden, who may calm things down for a while. But fundamentally, I could never buy into what Assassins was about. Those people were nutcases. They simply were nutcases. And I can never really justify in any way somebody who kills somebody else. I think Steve and John, in some way, were trying to make a justification for those people.
For why they did it.
I could not ultimately buy into that. I mean, listen, we can disagree politically. We can have, good, strong arguments. But when somebody kills somebody, that takes you in the line.
I agree. That they, right before, because Judy Kuhn was on the show, they were getting ready to do it. They were in rehearsal. They were 2 weeks into rehearsals for another production of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I have so we play a game on this show.
Okay.
Now, normally, but although you didn't say at the beginning, do you sing?
Well, I've been known to raise my voice in song when I've had a couple of drinks, but I'm drinking tea. So if you let me get a little bit of rosé, maybe I will. But I love it.
No. The reason I asked is because the normal game we play on this show is called Remember the Lyric, and what it is I usually know, like in your case, I wouldn't know, but I usually know a show that say Judy Kuhn or Kelly O'Hara had done, and a song that they had sang. So what as I did with Kelly when she was on the show, I said, so I'll sing the first lyric and then I'll point to you, you sing the next lyric. So I did If I Loved You. And it was just absolutely beautiful. And then I got to sing some of
If I Loved You, words wouldn't come in an easy way.
Check, please.
Yeah, I know. That game.
Okay, but I've decided for you, I have my own special game for you. And it's called Review the Riedel.
Okay.
Now, what this is I'm going to give you a quote, okay?
All right.
And you're going to, it's a quote that was said about you or about something, and you're going to tell me, if you can remember, who said the quote, and hopefully maybe the reason why they said the quote.
Oh, this is already too complicated.
Okay, but we're in this together. I'm going to help. So
I'm gonna go. I'm gonna walk over. You can see me. I'm gonna go to my kitchen. I'm gonna get a glass of rosé so I can prepare myself.
Well, look, Michael, I already have the bourbon. So.
You do. All right. I'm breaking out the rosé right here. Okay, you see, this is a
beautiful
Wolfer Estate rosé. All right, hold the fort. I'm gonna put this down right here. Hold on. I got to pour myself a glass to prepare myself.
Somebody prepare my bed. I'm going to be here for a while.
All right, the rosé. Here comes the rosé. See this?
Fantastic, Michael.
A big pour. I just want to say, just because I know everybody's trying to struggle these days, this is my friend Urban Stages, a great off-Broadway theater here in New York.
Yes, yeah, sure. Yeah.
I did a benefit for them the other day, and everybody, as you know, Patrick, they need help now. So please, I'm begging you people, support your theaters.
Please.
Without the theater in your cities, there's no fun, there's no culture, there's no life. So please give to Patrick's Theater, give to Urban Stages, give to all the theaters that are really struggling now. So
yes,
Urban Stages right here.
Amen.
All right, so, I'm moving back. You can see my apartment. Fabulous. There you go.
I seem to be. Am I live to you or am I freezing? It looks like I've been freezing.
You're good over here.
I'm good. I'm good over there for them. So as long as they tell me I'm okay.
Okay,
Michael. So it's Review the Riedel.
Okay.
And the first quote is, okay, here we go. It was unfair what you did to Bernadette. Do you know who said that?
Okay, so this takes me back to Gypsy, when Bernadette Peters was playing Gypsy. And I was attacking that show because I did not like her performance or that production. Could that have been, was that Floria Lasky?
Ding, 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 ding. Fiona Lasky. Yes, very good, Michael.
So Floria Lasky. Now, Patrick, I mean, I go back a long way. There were these broads, and they were broads. Okay, Liz McCann is a broad, right? Floria Lasky was a broad. Helen Merrill was a broad.
Liz McCann was a broad, is a broad.
Floria Lasky, she was Jerome Robbins' lawyer, okay? Wow. And I love Floria. She was great. And we got along really, really well. But I did not like that production of Gypsy directed by Sam Mendes. Mm-hmm. In fact, I was there on the first preview of that production because I'd heard from my friends that it was not so good. And I sat there in my aisle seat and I witnessed Arthur Lawrence, who wrote it, storming up the aisle. And he said to Sam Mendes, the director, he said, "Well, you've done something I never thought anyone could do." And Sam said, "What?" "You've ruined Gypsy." And Arthur left.
Oh.
I thought, now the fun begins. And I was at the opening night party, and this was at Tavern on the Green. And I saw Floria, whom I loved her. I mean, she was just the toughest lawyer. Listen, if you ever get in trouble, you want a Floria Lasky on your side.
Okay.
She took my tie and she tugged my tie there. She said, "What you did to Bernadette, I will never forgive." So I think I'm right on that one.
Oh, you're brilliant. Okay, I'm loving this guy. Okay, let's get to it. Let's get to number 2.
Okay.
All right. So our second quote is, "I'm unusual. I like him. Most people fear him."
I remember exactly when she said that quote. I was being profiled by New York Magazine, and the writer was following me around. And I went to a benefit at the Pierre Hotel. You know, Patrick, in the springtime, when it was a Broadway, you had to go to all those benefits because everybody wanted to be nominated for Tony Awards, and you had to show your face at all these things in April and May, and there was like a whole hoopla nonsense. So I was at the Pierre Hotel, and I told the writer who was profiling me, I said, "Just follow me around, see how I live. Follow me around." So she follows me. And at the Pierre Hotel that afternoon, I ran into Tony Kushner, who hated me then because I was not a big Angels in America fan. And I said, "Hi, Tony." And he walked away. And then the writer who was profiling me, she ran to get him. And he apparently said to her, he said, I can't talk about him. I hate him so much. And then she came back and she said to me, "I just talked to Tony Kushner. He really hates you." And my dear friend Elaine Stritch was next to me. And she says, "Most people hate him. I like him." So
Ding,
it's
ding, ding, ding,
Elaine
ding,
Stritch
ding,
quote.
ding. Oh. Oh,
By the
so
way,
good.
I have a great Elaine. I have many Elaine Stritch stories.
I do too. Didn't I tell you when we drank that night about?
I cannot remember that night. Only vaguely. My best Elaine Stritch story is, so we go. I take her out to dinner at Swifties on the Upper East Side.
Sure, I know Swifties.
And we're sitting there and we're talking and we're just now getting to know each other because I'd written some nice things about her and she wanted to meet me and this nonsense. And in the middle of dinner, she says, "Okay, I got to have my insulin," because she was diabetic.
Right.
She said, "But kid," she always called me kid, "I don't know which one I'm supposed to take." She put 2 vials on the table at Swifties and a syringe. And she said, "You pick. If you pick the wrong one, we go to the hospital. If you pick the right one, dinner goes on." Like, all right. Eeny, meeny, miny, mo. Catch a tiger by the toe. I picked this one. I said, "Okay. Your dime." That's what she said. "Your dime." Takes the syringe, puts it in. She pulls down her pants at Swifties. The diners are looking, what's it? She turns and says, "Do your business elsewhere." Gives herself a shot in her butt. She pauses and she says, "You picked the right one. Dinner goes on." Still there, Patrick? I think I've lost you. Hello? Hey, William, I lost Patrick there. Can't hear you guys. Hello?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can. Yeah.
There you are. Now I need to hear
lost
you.
you there for a
Hold on, bring you up. Hold on one second, Michael.
Okay.
I think it was
Did we-
Stritch.
Did we fix that funny Stritch story? I hope not.
Hold on, I can't hear you. Hold on a second.
Yeah.
They're bringing me in. There he is.
All right. Can you hear you?
Can you hear me, Michael?
Yeah, I can. Yeah.
I can, but I can't hear him.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear? Okay, keep going. We got you.
I can't hear him.
Patrick, can you hear me? Hello? Hello? I'm here.
I can hear you from over there, but I can't hear you here. Hold on. Let me see what that is.
Unmute. Can you hear me now?
Is it volume?
Can you hear me now?
Can't hear you here.
I can hear you now.
Okay.
Hold on. Let me see what that is.
Unmute. Can you hear me now?
Yep, I got you.
Is it volume?
Can you hear me now?
I got you.
Can't hear you here.
I can hear you now.
Okay.
Hold on. Let me
I'm
see
hearing
what-
some. Can you hear me now?
Yep, I got you.
Reverb.
Can you hear me now?
I got you.
Can't hear you here.
I can hear you now.
Okay. Hold on. Let me
I'm
see what-
hearing some. Can you hear me now?
Yep, I got you.
Reverb.
Hold on.
Here's to the ladies who lunch. Everybody laugh.
One more time.
Hello.
Here you are.
Here we are. Okay.
And I hear you. Oh my gosh. And it's not recorded, but that's the greatest
One more
rendition
time.
I've ever heard of Slade.
Hello.
Here you are.
Here we are. Okay.
And I hear you. Oh my gosh. And it's not recorded, but that's the greatest
One more
rendition
time.
I've ever heard
Why is that
of
doing
Slade.
Hello.
Here you are.
Here we are. Okay.
And I hear you. Oh my gosh. And it's not recorded, but that's the greatest
One more
rendition
time.
I've ever heard
Why is
of
that doing
Slade.
Hello.
Here you are.
Here we are.
Hold
Okay.
on. I hear you. Oh my gosh. And it's not recorded, but that's the
Welcome to the world of Zoom.
what's that? We're still, for some reason, this is the first time this has ever happened. It must be Stritch.
Absolutely. World of Zoom.
What's that? We're still, for some reason, this is the first time it's recording for some reason.
No, it's not recording.
It's got to be Elaine. I mean, Elaine from the grave is still trying to screw us up.
Let's see.
All right. So Patrick, talk and ask him if he can hear you.
Can you hear me, Michael?
Yes, I can. Yeah. Can you hear me?
I can.
Right.
Hopefully there's no recording.
So Patrick, talk and ask him if he can hear you.
Can you hear me, Michael?
Yes, I can. Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah,
I can.
hear you.
Right.
Hopefully there's no recording.
So Patrick, talk and ask him if he can hear you.
Can you hear me, Michael?
Yes, I can. Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah,
I can.
Michael, can you
Right.
do me a favor? Can you leave the studio and come back in?
You want me to leave?
Can you hear
I'm
me,
gonna
Michael?
come back in the
Yes,
same
I
way.
can. Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah,
I can.
Michael, can you do that?
Hello.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
And we're not echoing for the first time. Thank the Lord.
We're back.
That's
Hello.
it. I think
Can you
we're
hear
okay.
me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
No,
And we're not echoing for the first time.
still
Thank the
recording.
Lord.
We're echoing, I think.
Hold on.
Hello?
Michael. I
Can
think
you
we're
hear
okay.
me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
And we're not echoing for the first time.
Still
Thank the
Hold on. That is so strange.
There you go. I mean, come on. You got to improvise in life, Patrick. You got to improvise.
It shouldn't be. It should be.
Can you hear me? Can you see me?
Yeah, but it's not plugged into anything, is it? All right, so let's try this one more time here.
Here we go. I'm going to put this on. Can you hear me now, Michael?
All right, so let's try this one more time here.
I hear the reverb though.
So
I'm going to put this on.
It's like you're in a tunnel.
Can you hear me now, Michael? All right. Let's go this
Hold
one
on,
more
hold on.
time here.
I know what it is.
Here we go.
I hear.
Okay, can you hear me now, Michael?
I can, Patrick. Yes.
Oh my gosh, I kept thinking I was in Floyd Collins. Do-dee-oh,
I'm in the well. I'm in the well. There's a cricket on my head. There's a cricket on my foot.
I'm
Help
so
me,
sorry.
help me, help me.
And we were just talking about my favorite person, Elaine Stritch. So
Well, I got to ask you though. I mean, your dad, and you know I'm a huge fan of your dad. I mean, I think Jack Cassidy is one of the great actors of all time, and your dad must have known Elaine Stritch. They must have gone out. They must have drunk together. Come on, you must have stories that your dad told you about Elaine Stritch.
So I will tell you this story. I thought maybe, as you said, we both don't remember that evening. So no, I might have told you this that evening. But the story goes, for so much at the beginning of my career when I would come to New York, everybody, Michael, I mean, I'm talking about George, who was the maitre d' at Sardi, said, the first time he saw me, I was 19 years old. He said, and I used to dress in sweats and stuff like that. And my father was always in, personally tailor made suits.
Absolutely.
I mean, everything was handmade, custom made. And I came into Sardi's and George the maitre d' says, you look like your father. I'm sure you sing like your father, but God knows you don't dress like your father. So, and that happened to me. I mean, cab drivers would talk about, oh, I knew your father. And the women would always say, Barbara Cook said it, I loved your father. They would always say that. It was always a wonderful thing to hear. So I go to see Showboat. I'd never met Stritch. And I go backstage and she said, come here, let me take a look at you. And I come in and she said, wow, sit down. And I thought, okay, I want to tell you about your father. I loved your father. And I went, oh, here we go. No, it wasn't during Shirley. I went, thank you. We knew each other. I was very young, and I really loved him. And and I knew that they had dated. I knew that it was, and I really loved him. She said, but and I wanted him to meet my father. So we arranged this night where my father was going to meet Jack, and they went to dinner, and they had this wonderful dinner and all that. And then they went back, and later that evening, she got up in the night and came downstairs and saw her own father pacing in a row, sort of back and forth. And she said, Daddy, what's the matter? Why are you up at this time? And he said, Elaine, sit down. I can't get over that Cassidy guy I met tonight. You can't see him anymore. She said, why? Why, Daddy? He had on blue monogrammed shoes with J and C on each one. Anybody who has that, you can't date.
Well, I mean, listen, I think your dad is one of the great American actors, and I do hope that people will go back to see the Anderson trial that he was in. See those. I remember as a kid watching your dad on those Columbos. I mean, the first one he did, which Steven Spielberg directed,
correct,
by the book.
The Magician or the playwright?
No. The first one he did, he played Ken Franklin, directed by Steven Spielberg, a 24-year-old Steven Spielberg, called Murder by the Book, where he kills his writing partner.
That's right.
Martin Milner. He kills Martin Milner. Remember, from Adam 12, he kills Martin Milner. And your dad was just your dad was, and no actor can really come close to what your dad was able to do, which he was able to convey elegance and sliminess at the same time,
and still likable.
And you kind of rooted for him. He was a bad guy, but you liked him because he knew, I'm a bad guy.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to enjoy seeing how bad I can possibly be.
Right.
And then he did a great Columbo, which many people don't know anymore. And I talk about this with William Link is still alive.
Sure.
Who created Columbo. And William Link always said the best murderer ever was Jack Cassidy. Hands down, the best. And he did this one, Publish or Perish, where he plays a publisher, Riley Greenleaf he plays. Mm. And there is this moment, and if anyone who's an actor is listening to this today, you have to go watch Patrick's dad in Publisher Parish, because he's created this elaborate scheme of a murder that he's going to get off on. And the whole part of it is that Columbo's going to catch him in a lie. But by catching him in the lie, it's going to give him his alibi.
Mm-hmm.
And Columbo catches him in the lie, and your dad says, I never was a good liar. And then it cuts to Peter Falk, and Peter Falk in his eyes know this guy is full of shit. And it is acting, Patrick, on a level. You can have Laurence Olivier, you can have John Gielgud, but when your dad and Peter Falk were acting together, that is acting on a level that kids today, you cannot teach that in an acting class. They were just two people who they had chemistry, they understood each other. And when your dad just says, oh, I never was a good liar. And then it cuts to Peter Falk. He's like, you fucking asshole. I'm going to you can't write it. You cannot write what those guys did.
Peter Falk was quoted as saying that Jack Cassidy was largely responsible for the success of Columbia as a series because he was such a good foil for Peter. It was so, as you said, a great chemistry and two real individual guys that were so different that just worked so well together.
But what you see when you watch those old Columbos, and you see him as the Great Santini, which is, Now You See Him is the title of that episode. What you see is two really great actors enjoying each other's company. Mm-hmm. Just having fun together. Mm-hmm. It's like, we can do this, Peter. I mean, we can do as many takes as we want to, but you and I, take after take, we're going to have such a great time with each one of those scenes. I mean, they chew into those scenes. And I mean, I taught an acting class once, and I showed a couple of scenes from Columbo with your dad. And I said, this is what you should aspire to. Do you see how much these two great actors are enjoying each other's company? Yeah, that's what you have to do as an actor.
I want to talk to you about because of our lag, and I'm going to still make up the time. I want to talk to you about your. We had more. By the way, I had one more thing. I tell me who said the quote. I'm a wimp when it comes to physical violence, but give me a keyboard and I'll kill you.
That was me. Right. I don't like to get into a fight, but boy, man, when I get home at night, and if I don't like your play or your performance, man, I'll destroy you totally.
I want to talk about both your books. First, Razzle Dazzle. Razzle Dazzle, Battle for Broadway. Give us a synopsis of the whole overall book leading into Singular Sensation.
Yeah, well, Razzle Dazzle, which was the first book I ever wrote, and that was a time in my life where I knew a lot of great old guys who sadly are no longer with us. Jimmy Niederlander, Jerry Schoenfeld, who ran the Schuberts. I knew them well as a reporter. And I would spend time with them just off the record, hanging out in their offices. And they started telling me stories about what it was like, what Broadway and New York City was like in the 60s and the 70s. And the city was going to bankruptcy. Times Square was sleazy and dangerous. A lot of Broadway theaters were being torn down and made into parking lots. I mean, there's a famous line in Stephen Sondheim's Follies, when they all get together, and this great theater will now become a parking lot. Mm-hmm. And that's what was happening in the late 60s and early 70s. But these guys, the Schuberts, Jimmy Niederlander, they stuck together. They kept Broadway going. They found shows, Michael Bennett's A Chorus Line, Dreamgirls, Jimmy found Annie. Mm-hmm. The Schuberts found Equus, and they just kept these things kind of going in the 70s. And then you hit the 80s, and you have Cameron McIntosh and Andrew Lloyd Webber with Cats. And then you've got Les Miserables, Phantom of the Opera, Miss Saigon. And that was a moment where Broadway then was big business, big business. Mm-hmm. And so I took the story of Razzle Dazzle from a time when these guys were struggling to stay alive to the moment where this British invasion, as they called it back then, happened and really kind of shored up Broadway. And I ended when Bernie Jacobs, who was running the Schuberts back in those days, when he died. It's a great place to end a book when your main character dies, just like that's a period, end the book. Over. So that was the first book. And then Simon & Schuster said, well, we would like you to do another book. And I was thinking, well, I don't know if I have much to say. But then I thought, you know what? I really began covering Broadway in 1989, right out of college. And I lived through the 90s. And I thought there was something going on in the 90s that changed everything. You had Rent, you had Chicago, you had Angels in America, you had Disney with The Lion King, and then you had Mel Brooks with The Producers. I thought those shows in the 90s, they were as well known, as popular as any TV show or any movie of that era. I thought, that's a time where Broadway really went from being kind of a little bit of the backwaters of the entertainment business to being front and center in American popular culture. And you remember Rosie O'Donnell. She was the Ed Sullivan of that day. She had that hugely popular talk show, and all she did was talk about Broadway all the time. And I thought Broadway became big, big business in the 90s and did these great shows with these fantastic characters. Jonathan Larson, God rest his soul, he died before he could see Rent open. Julie Taymor, Michael Eisner, Fran and Barry Weissler, who did Chicago. John Cantor and Fred Ebb, who thought, this concert is never going to go anywhere, and made them gazillions of dollars. Right. And Mel Brooks, who was like, Mel Brooks, we liked his movies back in the day, but he seemed kind of out of touch. And we thought, the producers, is this really going to work? We were skeptical. And I remember interviewing Nathan Lane and Matthew Broderick for my book. And when they did the first read through of The Producers, they went out to lunch. And Nathan said to Matthew, this is either going to be the biggest hit of all time or the biggest flop that we're ever going to be in. You did not know. And so I took the book from the 90s right up there to when The Producers hits in April of 2001. And it was a great time for Broadway. I mean, Broadway was buzzing, Times Square was buzzing, New York was buzzing. And I remember I would go to Orso or Joe Allen, those restaurants we used to hang out back in the day. And Mel and Anne Bancroft, his wife, would go in. And Mel would walk into the restaurant and everybody would applaud, stand up, and Mel would go to each table. We love The Producers. We want tickets for The Producers. Can you help us get tickets for The Producers? Anything you can do for us to get tickets to The Producers? And Mel would be basking in the glory of being Mel Brooks with the biggest hit on Broadway. And then Anne, she would go over to the table that was reserved for Mel and Anne, and she'd let Mel walk around. Then she said, "Mel, eat." And then he'd close everything down, and he'd go back and sit at the table, and he would sit down, and he would. And that was an absolutely glorious, glorious summer, the summer of 2001. And then I went to the Broadway on Broadway, which they used to do in the Schubert Alley to promote Broadway. September 9th, Sunday, September 9th. And I remember Mayor Giuliani, he looked a little tired. He was, battling pancreatic cancer, and he split up with his wife, and he just looked a little gray and a little tired. And, but, he thought Broadway, everything's going to be fine. And then, 2 days later, September 11th, 2001, I got up. I live here in the West Village, and used to have a full-on view of the World Trade Center. And I got up and I looked out of my window, and there was this big black gash across the North Tower of the World Trade Center. Smoke coming out. I thought, that is weird. And like everyone else, I thought, well, I guess it was, a small plane probably hit the tower. Yeah. And I thought, well, I know what the front page of my newspaper, the New York Post, is going to be: a small plane hit the World Trade Center. And I thought, God, I feel sorry for those guys who were in that little plane that hit the tower. And then, I jumped in the shower, getting ready for work, and suddenly my phone was ringing, and I called it. I picked it up, and my friend said, "Another one hit the tower." I said, "What do you mean another one hit the tower?" She said, "Another plane flew into the other tower." And then the horror unfolded that morning. And I called my friend Jerry Schoenfeld, who was the chairman of the board of the Schubert Organization. And Jerry said, "I don't know what we're going to do, Michael." He said, "I don't know what we're going to do. We've been informed that Times Square is a terrorist target. We've been informed that terrorists might be attacking theaters if people go to theaters and taking them hostage, as they had done in Moscow. The terrorists had actually taken over a theater in Moscow and killed 200 people in the theater." And it was really, you thought, we had no idea what was going on. But Rudy Giuliani, when when he was sane, which was a long time ago, but he was sane back then. Those days. I interviewed him for this book, Singular Sensation. I call it The Triumph of Broadway, because the triumph is that Broadway came back after 9/11.
Right.
And Rudy Giuliani told me that day, that horrific day, he tried to go home and get some sleep for 1 hour, just 1 hour of sleep, but he couldn't sleep. He was reading a biography of Winston Churchill at the time. And he just happened onto the chapter when the Germans were bombing the hell out of London.
Mm-hmm.
And Winston Churchill insisted that the theaters, the opera, the ballet, that they go on.
Mm-hmm.
As a signal to the Germans, fuck you, you can bomb the hell out of us, but life is not going to change.
Right.
We can survive this. And the next day, Giuliani, he called all the Broadway producers together and he said, I want the lights of Broadway up. I want Broadway open. I want it as a symbol to the world that New York will not be brought to its knees by terrorists. And the only way I can do that is to light the lights, the marquees of Broadway.
And they did.
And Patrick, within 2 days, Thursday, September 13th, I was there. I went with Mel Brooks and Anne Bancroft to see the producers. And it was the most moving thing I've experienced in my life. I hope I never have to see it again. But, the theater was kind of half full, but Matthew and Nathan were there. And the laughs came, and then they started coming. And the show just took off. And at the end of that performance, Matthew and Nathan and Mel jumped up on the stage and they sang God Bless America.
Wow.
And I tell you, 1,500 people were singing that song, that great Irving Berlin lyric, with tears streaming down their faces.
So, where do we go now with this? As you said in the beginning, Broadway hasn't come back. This has never happened in the history of Broadway. As what you said when you rode your bike around and walked around.
Yeah, the terrible thing about all of this is that it's September 11th, and remember, we thought this was the existential crisis. We really did.
Mm-hmm.
But after September 11th, you wanted to be together. People had to be together. We had to come together, right? The pandemic, coronavirus, does not allow us to be together.
Mm-mm.
If you're an actor, you can't be on the stage and singing to people because you might spread the virus. You can't be a musician in the pit of the orchestra blowing on your flute or your oboe because you could spread the virus. I mean, this is the worst thing. If you wanted to destroy Broadway or theater, this is the worst thing that you could have, the best thing, I should say, that you could have come up with to destroy it. Because everything that you and I love, performing, singing, playing, you can't do because that spreads the virus.
Right.
So my great fear, and also my great fear is that it's going to take too long. It's going to take some time. My great hope is that we have a vaccine, and that people feel safe, and performers have to feel safe to come back first.
Right.
Musicians have to feel safe to come back first. And I think those will be the kind of frontline workers of the theater, if you will, because they will come back. Patrick, they're desperate to come back. They will.
Oh, yeah.
They will come back in a minute if they feel it's going to be okay. They will come back because this is what they love to do.
Mm-hmm.
What I am concerned about is when does the audience feel that they feel safe enough to come back?
And as you and I even talked about briefly, because we're at Studio Tenn, we're a smaller theater company. We don't have to sell, to 2,000 people or 800 people. We don't have to. So in increments, we can safe distance and we can, implement safety things and make people feel safe enough that at least slowly but surely we can start to, put entertainment out there. But with Broadway has to be at maximum capacity. Broadway has to have tourism. They have to allow for that, and that's what gives me the most sort of cause that I'm worried about. It's like, when will that happen? Full capacity and people, flying in.
It's not going to happen anytime soon. It's not. And I mean, if there's one, I hesitate to say one good thing because there's nothing good thing coming out of this. But if something changes in a way that I think could help Broadway, is that when it comes back, it cannot come back with these obscenely high price tickets.
You're 100% right, Michael.
It cannot come back. You cannot open Hamilton and say, hey, guys, we're back in business and now spend $1,000. Even though you've all been out of work, your lives have been upended, and we're still back in business and still pay $1,000. No, it cannot come back that way. And that's going to take the theater owners, the Schuberts, the Nederlanders, all the people that you and I have known all these years, the unions that you're a part of, and I am too. I have to remember. Everybody has to come together and say, okay, we have to have a new economic model to make it. We're not going to get as rich as we did. But by the way, we got really rich for the last 25 years. We got really, really rich. But okay, for right now, we're not going to get so rich. We can take the hit. But we've got to open our shows with ticket prices that regular people can afford. I mean, my concern about the theater in this city was it was becoming like everything else in the city was for the 1%.
Right.
And that's the death. That is the death of creativity. That is the death of art. I mean, Michael Bennett, who did a chorus line in Dreamgirls, he came from Buffalo. He dropped out of college, dropped out of high school, in fact, came here with no money, but he could see every show for, $2, $3. When you put the balcony price at, $200, you're killing the next generation of creative people who don't have the money.
No, Michael, you're exactly right. And in one kind of way, like you said, if there is a sort of open window, is that hopefully everybody will get together and drop everything so people can act. I mean, it's the reason why sort of, avant-garde, eclectic, interesting theater was made, and not everything was so massively produced. And I love Disney too, but that you could do something that was much more interesting and people could get to see it, and people get to, Sondheim came from that. It wasn't like Sondheim was making these gigantic, big, blockbuster musicals that people were, but he could do interesting theater, and there was a place for it, and it didn't cost. Or TKS, what has happened there? Do people still order to get a ticket at the last minute for?
You could, when I was a kid, I went to Columbia University here in the 80s, and you could go down to TKS, you get a $20 seat. Yeah. Now the half price ticket is $100.
Yeah.
And Lin-Manuel Miranda, God love him, he did a great job with Hamilton, but it came from the nonprofit theater, but it went right to Broadway, and the seats were $1,000. I mean, come on, that's not the recipe for great theater. It cannot be. It cannot be for the 1%, because the people who are going to write the new musicals, write the great plays, are not from the 1%. They have to be able to see everything so they can absorb it and learn from it, and then write their own thing. But if you make it just for the rich kids, please. I mean, I went to see Hamilton at a preview, the Richard Rodgers Theater, and it was the cast was diverse. And it was great. And I looked around, and the audience was just a bunch of rich white people who could afford to be there. Yeah. And that is not the future for the theater.
I agree. Michael, that's the best quote of the night. We play another game on this show.
Okay.
And it's really sweet to get to the little thing we do at the end. And yeah, first of all, as I anticipated, I could go hours with you, Michael. And I will be calling you all during the week, just because it's what you don't remember, and I remember some of it. That's what we did all night that
we had a great time. We were knockered out of our minds, but we had fun.
And I just got to talk with you all night. So the other game is you become the host.
Okay.
For one question, you get to ask me, and I'm afraid with your brain, but you get to ask me one question, any question, and I'm forced to tell the truth.
All right, one question. When did you know that let me rephrase that. When did you know that your parents were famous?
Wow. Oh my God, is that a great question? When? The best way I can answer this question. When I was 40, I saw I had already been an actor for quite some time. I had done very well, and lost my father, obviously much younger, and my brothers had their success, all that. But they were still my brothers. She was still my mother, and he was my father. And all the things that went along with that. When I was 40, my brothers and I, my mom was then separated from my stepfather, Marty, and she was living in an apartment. And my brothers and I, Sean and Ryan and myself, went to this apartment to watch her A&E biography. It was the first one that was a 2-hour biography. And we sat in this little apartment and we were watching it. I'll never forget this. And it was beautifully done. If you have a chance to see it, it's a wonderful, it was one of the first, like I said, 2 hours. And I was sitting there, I was watching. And I was learning about my mother, and I was seeing her screen test with Paul Newman. And I was seeing her work with Marlon Brando and David Niven and Richard Whitmark and Burt Lancaster. And I was hearing people talk about her. And all of a sudden, something hit me in a way that I had never experienced. And that was, I saw the star. I saw what everybody else saw. I saw what Richard Rodgers and Oscar Hammerstein saw in her. And I saw her talent. I saw why she became a star. And it literally stopped my breath. I was like, oh my God, I get it. She's not just mom.
Right.
She's this famous person filled with talent that America and the world fell in love with, and I see it now. I can't relate to her that was the moment that I realized that, as you said, I mean, I'd never been asked that before, but I was thinking that was the most significance for me, realizing what my mother was and what she meant to the rest of the world that loved her so much.
And how did she respond to watching herself in that documentary? She's like, nah, I did this, I did that. So what?
The way she still responds. I mean, it makes you think about my mother, and she's actually going to be on the show for the first time for our Thanksgiving show.
Yeah.
The amazing thing about her is that it never meant anything to her. Yeah. She could sing, as she says, God gave her this gift. But really the things in life that really are supposed to mean everything, her children, her family, really were the first things in her life. So the fact that she had all this success, although she's, I think, very appreciative of it and it gave her a wonderful sort of legacy in terms of her career, the things that really mattered were the things that had nothing to do with her career. So
yeah, and I was always moved by because we talked about your dad's tragic death, and I know your mom and your dad had separated at that point, but I think your mom still loved your dad, and she was as devastated as anybody was at his death.
Yeah, very much, very, very much. Michael, I am so sorry we had a little technical difficulty. That is not happening. It will not happen again. You are a gem. You are amazing. I swear, Michael, we need to have more talks.
Anytime.
And if we need to have a lot of this, that's okay.
Absolutely. We had a lot of that back in Bucks County. I vaguely remember that night. Somehow I got home. I don't know how you did, but we both got home. So
we both managed because we're here. Thank you. Tomorrow, the book comes out tomorrow. Singular Sensation: A Triumph of Broadway by Michael Riedel. Please get a copy and read. He is amazing, as you guys have gotten to hear. His stories are incredible, and I know we talked about some of the things you talk about in the book. It's great, and I hope it sells a gazillion copies. Please, let's stay in touch.
Absolutely, Patrick. Call me anytime. I'm here.
You're amazing.
Good times and bum times. I'm still here. Take care, guys.
Thank you, Phil. Thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Well, that's our show, guys. Thank you for tonight. Thank you for staying with us. If I know we had a little technical difficulty tonight, but thank you for staying with us. And remember, as Michael was saying so graciously about theater companies, this is how we survive. Really, from your donations. Please keep them coming in. We need them. We need to also not survive and get through this. There was a great piece on the news that a vaccine, Pfizer, hopefully we're going to have a vaccine soon, and that's what we need. But in the meantime, we need your donations. We need you to stay hooked and engaged, and we will stay with you. We have so much to look forward to. Yes, there are our Fall Barrel Bash tickets are available now at fallbarrelbash.com. Come get a bottle of bourbon. They're fantastic. Bid on it. We have an incredible show. Yes, there she is. My good friend Melora Hardin is on the show next week. We did Dirty Dancing together. She was on The Office, Steve Carell's girlfriend on The Office. She is absolutely gorgeous. She is incredibly talented. She did Chicago on Broadway. She and I are going to dance on Studio Tenn Talks next week. And And yeah, we have some great stuff coming up. Like I said, my mother's going to be on our Thanksgiving show. We're going to be shooting that. We have so much other stuff to talk to about, surprises for the holidays. And then, of course, even after the 1st of January, we're going to talk about that too. But tune in. Thank you for staying with us tonight. And as a goodbye song, I just want to say goodbye. Goodbye.